Welcome back, everyone. This is season 2 of Sip It. I can't believe that we made it through a whole season and I get to do this all over again, although we have a different set this time. We are actually in my shop for season 2, so
that's exciting.
Changing gears a little bit. Today we're here with Leighton, who is the founder and owner of Found Coffee Roaster. We've been friends since COVID days. It's been a while, and
when I had no friends.
Oh, now you have friends?
I've got 3 friends now.
That's good. So I'm super grateful that you agreed to say yes to coming today, and I'll hand it over to you to tell us a little bit about who you are and your story, and a little bit about how you got into the coffee industry.
Yeah, cool. Well, firstly, it's exciting to be here, season 2 of the podcast. So it's exciting to be a part of it, and in your shop, which I'm sure is the birthplace of a lot of the vision. And so I'm so proud of you. I think you've done a fantastic job, and it's been great to be friends since the beginning. Like we've been friends since we started Found, basically. But I've been in the industry in Australia since I was 15. I'm now 37. Yeah, basically feel it when I get up in the morning. But yeah, anyway, I've been in the industry since I was 15, and so I fell into the coffee industry when I was 15. It was my job after school. I ended up managing that shop when I was 16. So I'd go to school in the morning, and then I'd come to the shop and I'd close up, and then I'd do that basically every day, Monday to Friday, and then I'd work weekends. Because I just loved coffee. I loved what it was. I loved what it did for people. It brightened people's days. It gave them energy. It connected people. It was the conduit of community, and it was such a beautiful connection point for people that were looking for relationship, And I, started for a company called Gloria Jeans, which was a huge dominating franchise in Australia, which ironically came from the States. Originally, and then it was converted into the Australian market and led by what is a friend of mine and one of my mentors, who's since sold the business. But yeah, so I started in that sort of world. I started managing it at 16, the local shop, and then since then I haven't really noticed or known anything else. I ended up having a little bit of a break where I started working for our family real estate business. It was kind of a fun sort of breather after spending what was 10, 15 years of working for other people and basically working for people with, more money, more connections, making their dreams come true while, I'd be doing open till closes, much like what I kind of still do. But for this time it's for myself, which kind of adds a little bit of an element to it. I ended up taking a little bit of a break with the family real estate business and then going back into coffee and starting 31 locations across Australia and Indonesia for a new sort of brand, and that was wild, to put it nicely. Non-stop. It just didn't stop, and so I needed a little bit of a break. I did a bit of consultancy work at the time for some really great friends of mine, and then was given an opportunity to move to North America to start a couple of coffee shops for a brand that had just been invested into by Shark Tank or Dragon's Den or one of those guys, and it basically became a conduit of me coming to Canada. As a backup plan, I had already applied for my visa for Canada. I called up the company that wanted me to move to the States to work for them and start some more of the shops there, and said, hey, your immigration agent made a mistake, blah, blah, blah. That's now not going to happen. But ironically enough, my visa has come through for the state, for Canada. What do you think about Canada? And they go, really? I'm like, well, yeah. I go, well, we're in Toronto right now. Would you be open to Toronto? And I'm like, sure. Yeah. Most people don't know this, but I was, born with spina bifida. I've had 63 hospital admissions. I'm no stranger to medical challenges and fighting for my life and other stuff like that. And anyway, the ironic thing is I flew to Toronto when I was 8 years old. We were in the Skydome Hotel, and we got to, and I just fell in love with the city. So it's pretty crazy how how this sort of story has unfolded for me personally, and that's partly why our business, at least I'm trying to evolve our branding and our business into more of a story and a journey, because I think in the midst of a hyper-saturated marketplace, which it is, you can't walk 50 meters in this city without walking past a coffee shop. Everybody's trying to compete for attention, everyone's trying to compete for business. It's kind of like, I guess, driving in downtown Toronto sometimes. Like, everyone's cutting you off and everyone's sort of trying to get ahead. But in that sort of marketplace, you've got to stand out somehow. Like, I can't compete with Amazon. I can't compete with Starbucks. I can't compete with Tim Hortons or Second Cup or all these massive brands that are funded by billionaires. So how are we going to be different? We have to start showing our story, sharing that with people, inviting people on the journey, telling people the authenticity behind what they're a part of. Otherwise, the reality is the entire world, everybody's lives are going to be based on the decisions of the few.
Yeah.
The small business is the silver bullet to mass corporations. Not against corporations, but I'm like, if you're not careful and they own the whole supply chain, then they're at the mercy of all the pricing, they're in the mercy of the control of the farmers. Like, the amount of times that I've sort of talked to people about how Starbucks is terrible for the farmer, like in terms of coffee growing, and not just what they're doing ethically at the moment, but all over the place. They are an absolute, they're a problem. That if we do not start to change the tide, which we're starting to see signs of that, which is excellent, then we're in a dangerous spot, because no one's asking the questions. Why are these developing nations still sitting in so much poverty? Why are these developing, and yet Starbucks are the massive purchaser of all of their massive commodity export through coffee? But it's a big picture view on a small business, at least from my point of view. 100%. But moved here in 2019 in the middle of what was called patio season, whatever that meant, because I didn't even know what that meant when I moved here.
Toronto version of that.
Yeah, and I was like, what is a patio season, and why is it a season? Like, isn't it like summer, autumn, winter, spring? Like, is that not the way that it works? But anyway, me being a bit naive, I was like, oh, cool, patio season, whatever that is. So I was like, oh, this is beautiful. I could live here. Look at this warmth. Wow, 25 degrees every day. This is like amazing. And then, so I loved it. I moved here, but I started these 2 shops with a team of people in Toronto. And then the week after I moved here, I actually met a special lady who we're still together 4.5 years later, and almost 5 years now. Wow. And so that was a huge cherry on top for the story of me staying in Canada and staying in Toronto. And her family, my goodness, what a gift they've been. I came back to Toronto in the beginning of 2020, and we're in a really great stage in our relationship, and the pandemic hit, and it was like 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Woo! Remember that?
Yes.
And long story short, I basically was like, oh, cool, I'm not going to go back to Australia. It's just 2 weeks. Why would I, I'm in a lease. I've got a contract. Like, there's all this work thing that I've got. I've only got 2 years on my visa. Why would I go back to Australia? So anyway, I stayed, and then the pandemic kept going on, kept going, and then everybody was getting laid off, and all of the hospitality industry was completely getting ripped from the inside out. I'm like, okay, well, do I even have a future anymore? Like, is this, what's this world going to look like for me? And, I remember just getting to a point where I was so passionate about making a difference in the industry over here, because I knew that I was never going to be able to, never going to take away from the dominance of Starbucks and Tim Hortons and stuff like that. But I've known coffee for my entire working career, and it's part of the culture of my country, of the way that I've been brought up. Like, it's part of everyone's everyday life. Coffee, to an Australian is what, you know, ice hockey is to a Canadian, right? Like it's part of the fabric of your culture. It's part of what you know. It's part of what is something that you're almost proud of, you know. So, you know, moving over here, I was like, oh, I just want to bring a little bit of my home to this home, right? So I was like, okay, how do I do that? I've got no money. I've banked into my savings. I've dipped into my savings because everybody's getting laid off and the minimum wage over here was not great, and it's not great and not really livable in downtown Toronto. And then, so I basically got into a situation where I had to bite the bullet and say, all right, well, is this the one chance that I have in my life to actually make a difference over here and to start something myself? And so I kind of had to ponder it because it was me sort of grieving the loss of my life savings and going, okay, well, I've spent 20 years saving up this money and now it's going to be gone in like 2 weeks. Yep. You know, it's a scary place to be, but you know, some people don't know this, but I did a little bit of a pilot's course when I was younger in high school. I was like, but I couldn't get my pilot's license because I lost my kidney. So, and you had to have 2 kidneys and have to be in health anyway. So one of the things that you learn in your pilot's course is that every plane takes off against the wind. Every plane takes off against the wind. You know, so whether you're in downtown Toronto's little kind of island airport or whether you're at Pearson or anywhere in the world, the plane's going to take off against the wind because that gives it the most lift. Okay. So my thought was like, okay, is the pandemic my against the wind? You know,
is
this my opportunity to go, you know what, if I'm going to actually take flight and do something with my life, is this it? You know, when everyone else is closing, when everyone else is trying to get out, when everyone else is trying to sort of do what that, you know, trying to kind of save up and pull money back and the whole economy's collapsing, is it silly for me to go, you know what, I'm going to go all in on this?
Yeah.
And so that's actually what ended up happening. I met a beautiful couple, Martina and Jabola, who owned Hopper Coffee at College Street, and they were delightful. They were so wonderful. And you know, at the time I was, you know, bringing over stuff from Australia. I was bringing over Milk Lab and bringing over a few different products that I thought could impact the industry. And I met some relationships along the way, and that's kind of and Martina and Jabola basically said that they were pregnant and that they didn't want to reopen the shop at the end of the pandemic, whenever that was going to be at the time, because no one knew. So I was like, oh, you know, I'd love this space. Like, we'd love to be able to find some common ground. And so we agreed on a price. We purchased all the equipment. We took over the lease. And then I was like, okay, what do I do? Because I've never started a business in Canada before. Like, I've done stuff in Australia, and things are a lot more complicated than they need to be. And so I'm like, I don't want to get arrested. Am I allowed to do this? Does my visa allow me to actually start a business over here? Am I going to get deported? Is Trudeau going to come after me? Like, I'm like, all of these panic going, like, how do I do this? And so, yeah, anyway, started the business, and I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. I didn't have my PR. Like, I was literally a little bit over a year into my 2-year work permit. So in the back of my mind, I was like, well, if this fails, I'm done anyway, right? I'm going to get deported.
Trudeau is coming for me.
Yeah, well, they definitely want your tax money, let's put it that way. But anyway, the reality of the situation was that I was like, okay, this is it. Either it works or it doesn't. My entire life savings are on the line, and I remember having a chat with Nicole going, well, if it's really bad and I'm just working by myself and we're doing like 5 drinks a day, then at least I can sleep in the basement. We got the keys. I had an emotional kind of moment. I was like, all right, every day I'm paying $150 in rent. I need to figure out how I'm going to make this money back. And if I take 1 extra day, I've lost $150. And if I take an extra week, I've lost like $1,000 or whatever. And so I remember like going, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to work my butt off, and I'm going to just open in 3 days. So I did. I planned everything. I planned everything out. and we ripped out, we painted, we put signage up, everything was planned in 3 days to reopen. That wasn't perfect, but it was like enough to be able to reopen. Anyway, and so I remember actually in the week that we were opening, there were, everyone was like, all the rules kept changing every 5 minutes, right? It was like, you can open, you can have indoors, you can have outdoors, then you can only have 3 people inside at a time, and you can only have this, and like all this stuff costs money, right?
Yeah.
And all buying all this signage stuff costs money. You're just like, all right, are you making?
Well, that was the point too.
Well, yeah.
But...
yeah. And like all this stuff costs money to do it, not just the emotional strain and the physical strain of running a business, and through the middle of a pandemic, but like everything else that you are required to buy. And as a new business that opened in the pandemic, we weren't eligible for any of the government support.
Yeah.
Right. So we literally we had to just figure it out, and we just had to hope that people would come back. But anyway, we started Found on like the end of July, beginning of August, 1st of August, I think it was, in 2020, and I was like, well, bring on patio season. This is what's this patio season? Let's do it, you know. And you know, I didn't even know if we were allowed to have a patio, to be completely honest. I was like, as far as I knew, you're allowed to have 1.2 meters out the front of your shop, and I was like, okay, I'll take it. So
here's my patio.
Here's my patio. Everyone, come, patio season. Let's go. And yeah, no one came. It wasn't as easy as, well, not no one came. I just, because I made sure that with Martina and Jabal, I was like, hey, one of the things that will really help us is if we just have your social media. I was like, would you be willing to let us take over your social media?
Yeah.
It's not going to be worth anything to you anymore because you're wanting to part ways with the business. It would really at least give us a head start. And so we started with like, I think 700, 800 followers. My social media marketing like concepts were like, just be real, be authentic, be, you know, like just be yourself and hope that people can connect with that. And, you know, so I remember every morning I'd stand at the front of the shop and be like, g'day guys, I'm here, you know, come try the coffee. I've got this really nice coffee from, you know, this roaster. Cannot wait, you know, for you to try it. For me, it's tasting like chocolate and nuts and like all this sort of stuff. But come on down, come say g'day, get a couple of good stuff. You know, like I just say, I'd be the weirdest guy, but
the
like
Australian guy.
And everyone would look at me on the street going, "You're an idiot. What are you doing? You're a weirdo." And there's a streetcar stop at the front of the shop, and so every time, without fail, I could show you so many bloopers of me just going, crap, like shit, like And funnily enough, when we got to winter, I was still doing it, and it's like -10 outside, and I'm sitting there in a t-shirt and an apron going, "Come on down to my shop. Here I have this new coffee from Ethiopia. Tastes like
You're still
fruity."
doing this.
Well,
Nothing has changed.
Yeah, nothing has changed except I've gained probably 5 kilos.
Okay.
We opened and it was fun. And literally it was like we were doing like $150 a day, like $200 a day. And that, you know, that's a great starting point, to be honest. I was like really flawed. And I just started having conversations with people. I was like, oh, so you live in the area? I just remember one of the first weeks that we were open, like everyone was like, "You're not allowed in. No one's allowed inside." And this elderly lady, because there's a hospice around the corner, walked in and she just bawled her eyes out and she just like burst. She's sitting on the bench just crying. I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I do? Because I'm, according to the government, meant to kick everyone out and only do takeaway and all this sort of stuff. So I'm like, I'm bringing over water. I'm sitting with her, making her comfortable. And then, like, to me, I was like, man, like, I just want this business to be human. I want our brand to be known for being authentic and real. And so there were these beautiful moments, and there's still been some crazy moments. Like we've had less wanted visitors come and like grab cream and pour it all over the cushions at the front of the shop. And we've had people pretend to have a gun and point it at me, and I've had people throw stuff at me. I've had it all. Like we've had people steal our plants from the front of our shop and run off, and we've had people pick up our pottery and throw it at cars driving past.
Oh my God.
We've had all of it. No one hears these stories, right? It's not like I'm going to be on social media and be like, "Hey guys, just let you know, we had someone come in and like grab a piece of our pottery and throw it at a streetcar. Come down and get a coffee." Like that's people don't want that. I met you as well. Sorry, this is what the actual question was.
No, that's okay. Your story too.
I met you, and you know, I remember reaching out to people that were, you know, either were following Hopper at the time or starting, or basically starting businesses or doing like really cool stuff. And I was just like, hi, I'm Leighton. I'm starting Found Coffee.
Yep.
It's a little business and I would just love for you to come. I'd love to meet you. No ulterior motive.
Yep.
Don't have to post about it. Like, I'm not some big conglomerate that expects you to do X, Y, Z or do something you don't believe in. Just, would come, love to meet you. I'd love to make a coffee for you and see if you like it.
Yeah, you offered me a cold brew.
Yeah.
That's literally
And hopefully
what
it
I
tasted
remember.
good.
And
you have iced Americanos.
I was actually, so when you messaged me, I was actually in quarantine because my parents had just flown in.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually couldn't make it, and I messaged you. I was like, do you guys deliver by any chance? And you were like, no. And I was like, okay, well, I'll come visit once I'm out of quarantine.
Oh, I remember that. That's true.
Because I had been to Hopper before, and I just, like, wasn't sure what had happened there. And then I saw that, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And, like, I'm someone who goes to a new coffee shop, like, the second it opens till this day. So I was like, okay, I have to go. Like, I told my parents, I'm like, once we're out, we have to go visit this coffee shop. And we did.
Well, that's nice. I met your parents too, and they're lovely.
My parents love Found.
Yes,
like,
well, Found loves them, whatever that means. So it's whenever people comment, we love Found, I'm like, Found loves you. But yeah, so I remember meeting you, and I was just like, oh, can you just come and say hi and just, and I remember looking at your art, and I remember meeting Nicole, your Nicole, not my Nicole.
My Nicole.
And, just, like, I remember you put us on one of your prints, and I, like, panicked. I freaked. I was like, oh my God, we've made it!
Hold on. Let's get the story right. You asked to be on that print. Don't even.
Maybe. I don't know what I said at the time, but maybe.
Maybe. Rewind. I had done the first version, and you had seen it, and you were like, if you do another one, would you put us?
Yeah.
And I was like, absolutely.
Gotta ask the question, you never know.
And we literally, the reason we did a second one was because of your ask.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we were like, I had no idea whether people would like it or not. Like, the whole, like, coffee shop print was like, okay, let's just see. And people loved it and started using it as, like, a way to visit new cafes. And then I was like, okay, well, like, one and done. And then you asked, and I was like, okay, maybe we, like, keep doing this. So I asked Nicole, and she was like, yeah, absolutely. So you were, like, the ignition behind, like, creating another one.
Honestly, I remember when I first saw it, I was just like, oh my God, Mum's going to be so proud of me. My mum's going to be proud of me. I'm like, we've made it. I've officially, like, made a difference in the Toronto coffee scene. I can go back to Australia proud, you know?
You were very sweet about it. It was very, very sweet.
But it matters because, like, when you're hard slogging, like, and you are figuring out a way to just survive, you're literally looking for ways to just be part of the community and just be recognizable. And I remember, like, and I've said, I don't know if I've said this to you before, but I think I've told you that I feel like you're part of the glue that has helped the industry remain strong in the middle of a very divisive season and years of that. And I was thinking this morning before coming here, and I remember, I was like, what can I say to Monica that I think will be encouraging? And the thought that I had was, it was like, you're like the yeast in the bread. You know what I mean? Like, if there's certain... No, does that sound bad? No, listen, let me finish my thought.
Like bread.
No, everyone loves bread. But bread grows because of the yeast, right? Like, it's what brings activity, it's what brings excitement. Like, you guys just had your 2-year anniversary, something? 2 years, 2 years. My goodness. And, like, lines out the door, crazy donut-filled stuff, and, like, cookie croissants. Yeah, amazing. And we've got Goutte in our shops now because of your relationship.
Yes.
So, like, basically, we're basically SnaptureThis cafe. Everyone, don't worry about Found, don't worry about Australia. This is what we're going to rebrand. We're going to... My goodness. Yeah, that would be a very expensive thing to do, but maybe one day we'll see. Yeah, we go way back. And I remember thinking through going, oh man, like, I just want people to come back again. And, there's so much coffee everywhere, and we've tried our best to create a beautiful space, but, like, I don't have $1 million. I literally had $100,000 of savings my entire life. That's all I had. And I literally spent 85% of it before we even opened. And I say this to our team all the time. I go, everyone's on a journey from Starbucks to specialty, and I think we need to help
100%.
people take those steps and those links in the chain away from that. And whether they come to my shop or whether they come to someone else's coffee shop, I don't mind as long as they're making those steps. That's what I loved about the prints that you did, because I was like, hey, you know, we're just one cup on that thing. You know, like we are surrounded by some coffee shops that have been around much longer than I've been here, and I get to be a part of that group. Like, how cool. And now I'm stuck in a situation where I'm like, all right, now I've got soon to be 3 shops in Toronto.
Congrats, by the way.
Congratulate me if people come.
People
Every time I go there,
I'm
sitting there. Everyone's so lovely over there. It's crazy. Like, building Bronzy, I don't know what happened.
It's amazing.
But I literally am sitting there, and people walking past, they're sticky beaking, they're looking inside, going, and they're like super ultra supportive.
Bronzy is a very community-driven area. It's amazing.
I couldn't believe it. I literally, like, I'm used to College Street where no one wants to talk to you, and they just got their heads down and do not want to talk to you, and they want to, like, you don't even want to know. Don't even get me started on the amount of stuff that I've had to navigate with College Street. But like, it's crazy how different these neighborhoods are within the same city. Then there's Guelph, right? Like, we haven't really talked about Guelph. Guelph has like a massive patio at the front. It's 4,000 square feet, that space. It's huge. It's now our roastery, and we have yoga studios and dance classes and all this stuff. Not me, I don't do the dances.
Not running the dance studio. But that's so amazing too. Like, I mean, we're not even touching on like the fact that you created a coffee roastery.
Yeah, crazy.
Like, you're not just a cafe, you're actually serving your own coffee.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're trying to evolve, to start to be a better alternative to the big brands.
But also people are leaving the city, right? So the more people that leave Toronto and go into like the neighboring cities, they still like, I mean, we grow, like our generation is like used to that like cafe scene, and like people are hesitant to leave the city because they don't want to miss out on like the food and coffee scene and bars and whatever else. So like now there's more places moving out into those cities. I hate going to Mississauga, for example, because I'm like, there's literally
nowhere to get
no coffee shop. Yeah. I want like a decent cup of coffee, or I want to meet someone there for like a cup of coffee, and you have like 2 options. So it's like, yeah, people are moving out to like Guelph because they can't afford Toronto anymore, and like still want that.
Yeah, and I feel like
cafe to go to.
Yeah, the technology has really helped. I think a lot of office jobs become a little bit more virtual, which is helpful for the more regional or rural areas and their economy, because, you know, moving to Guelph, I really struggled with at first. I haven't moved to Guelph, I still live in Toronto, but starting the shop in Guelph, was a really hard slog. We took over an existing cafe space that closed, and the landlord would only give us the space if we took on the entire building, which was 4,000 square feet, and you're just like,
I don't want a building.
I don't need 4,000 square feet. I literally am trying to make it smaller, because the margins in coffee are not what everyone thinks, especially in specialty coffee. You need to sell like 1,000 lattes to pay $5,000 a month in rent, right? So it's
Hear that, peeps. 1,000 lattes.
Yeah, and so when people walk in thinking that their latte is like the most, you're like, well, it is important, and it does matter. But I'm like, if you want businesses like ours to survive and you want us to thrive and grow, then it takes like a tide shift. You know what I mean? I say to other cafe owners and other like-minded businesses, I'm like, hey, when the tide rises, all the boats lift. And so we really just need to start to win people over, away from your Tim Hortons, away from your Starbucks. And we can never compete with their convenience, right? I believe that ultimately we need to invite people on that journey away from Starbucks to specialty, and to educate people. So coffee, when it's grown, is scored between 0 and 100. And that then rates the quality of the coffee that's grown and the price point that's attached to it. And it's completely scientific. It's completely based on density of the coffee and a whole range of other factors. And so when someone calls the specialty coffee specialty, that means that it's scored over 80, right? Okay. So the top 1/5 of coffee is only going to be served at Found, or really any specialty cafes, that if they're using that term properly. But what that means is that the other 80%, someone's buying it and someone's drinking it, right? And that's the dirt stuff. Like, that's the stuff that, you know, grows on the side of the road. It's like, there's not really any major producer.
Dirt stuff.
No, it is. Well, sorry, don't quote me on that, but that's what it is. It's the stuff that doesn't taste great. So what they do is they just dark roast the crap out of it, remove any of your ability to taste any of the imperfections, because it just becomes a bitter blur of darkness. And then they pay the farmers nothing for it, basically. Ultimately, specialty coffee should be a good experience, and it should be done ethically from start to finish. And I believe small businesses like Found, like multiple of other coffee shops that I could rattle off in the city and beyond, I think we all need to be working together to help usher in change in the industry. And the evidence is there. I know this sounds silly, but being an Australian, I know Starbucks can fail. The reason why Starbucks failed in Australia is because great coffee was already everywhere, right? So it failed, and they thought they were great. They were like, oh, we're amazing, we're going to open. They opened 40 stores in like the first year, but they were losing millions, and they just assumed people would come. In all the hospitals, they started doing all the same stuff that they do here. All of the main touristy traffic areas, and now there's like only 3 left in the country, or 4 left in the country, and they're only in airports and then in high tourist areas, because, you know, North Americans might want. It's familiar, and that's okay. Like, I'm the same. Like, and Australians are the same. Like, at Found, we get Aussies walking in, they see Vegemite on the shelf, and they see, and they're like, oh yes, a piece of home.
They just know what to expect. And I get that, and I think you also saying, like, you appreciate that, like, transition from like Starbucks to specialty, and I'm one of those people. Like, my first iced Americano, my best friend had literally gotten me one from Starbucks, and she was like, just try an iced espresso or an iced Americano, and I was like, oh, I've never had that. I used to drink hot coffee, and I wasn't like a huge fan, but it like woke me up, like kept me alive. But when I had it, I was like, oh, interesting. And then I kind of got into like the cafe space. Like, the first cafe I really went to in the city was Balzac's, and I was like, oh, like I can order the same thing here. And so I started trying all the cafes and trying that iced Americano in cafes, and I was like, oh, okay, this is way better than the garbage that I'm drinking. So I switched. Like,
it's literally kind of garbage.
If you order a drink, it automatically comes with syrup at Starbucks, and that's because of that like super burnt taste that you taste. And most people, when like they haven't had like a good cup of coffee, are like, it's too burnt, it's too bitter, it's like, I don't like it. And it's just like, they've probably not had a decent cup of coffee.
And I've had probably countless conversations now of people that have come to our shop and gone, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, like, I don't need sugar in this. It's like,
it's basically naturally flavored.
Because coffee is the seed of a cherry, right? Like, it's you know, from my point of view, it's got natural sugars in it, and if it's cared for, if it's grown well, cared for in the process, roasted with precision, and actually roasted with care, and then actually served with great systems and with, you know, good machinery and all of the things that we focus on to be able to craft a good cup, then you'll end up with a drink that you probably don't need sugar in, and you probably don't need the flavors. Like, and now that we've started the roastery, we've had to get involved in bringing in other products that will, I guess, help other cafes with their journey, and so we've, you know, brought in natural proper syrups from California, and like, that's the first ever natural syrup brand for specialty coffee, and I want to see change in the industry. And for me to be able to do that, I need to create better alternatives for people, and that's why we go through the effort of bringing in plant-based milks from Australia. That's why, which is made with 3 or 4 times more of the raw ingredients than any of the ones made in North America. And you're just like, why does this taste better? I'm like, well, this is why, you know. Or, oh, what's this vanilla syrup? I'm like, yeah, those little black dots in that syrup, like, that's real vanilla bean.
Welcome.
Like, yeah, like, join the club, like, tell your friends, come back again. And we're not charging $10. you know, because places like those big corporations are needing to pay multiple levels of leadership. And so it's costing someone somewhere, and I'll tell you what it is. It costs the farmer and it costs the consumer. The more that people educate themselves or listen to podcasts like this and start to understand the framework of the industry, will start to see, oh, you know what, that's why I want to go to Found.
Yeah. That's
why I want to walk past the 5 Starbucks and the 2 Tim Hortons that are on that track just to come to Found, because I want my $4.50 flat white or my $5 latte or whatever it is to reinvest back into the whole process of what it means to have a good, like, diverse specialty coffee culture in the city.
I keep going back to, like, there is room for more coffee shops.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is no, I know it's saturated, I know there's so many, but if you go anywhere in the city, any cafe, it's full every day. Yeah. The winter months are definitely harder, but, like, it's not like people don't want to go. Mm-hmm. It's just like, why are they going to go to Found today?
Right.
Like, that's really, I mean, that's my approach, is like, why am I, like, which cafe am I going to pick today and why? And, like, sometimes it's, I just want a space to work on my laptop. Sometimes it's, I'm meeting this one person and our go-to cafe is Found, and that's, like, our place. Like, there are so many reasons why people go to cafes, and you've done such a good job of, like, sharing the story. And even now when you showed me, like, your rebranded, like, the bags of coffee, like, that's such a, like, beautiful way of, like, showing your story. And you've done this from the start. You've shared your story from the start. That's why I, like, felt drawn to, like, support your brand. And I feel like a lot of people, like, you've gone from 700 followers to, like, over 10K in
11.8.
11.8. I said over 10.
We ticked over from 11.7 to 11.8
Okay.
yesterday, and I was like, oh!
Like,
oh.
That's incredible in, like, 4 years, 5 years.
But I need to be clear that doesn't translate in terms of, like, means that we're successful, because people can buy followers, right? Like,
100%.
But I can understand, and I thank you, because, you know, these followers, they're wonderful people, and they've somehow stumbled across our business, and they've gone, you know what, I want to be a part of that journey.
Yeah.
And I think from my point of view, the future is exciting, because, you know, the city does need more cafes. You know, I get offered shops weekly, like, and, you know, the answer is not more Found coffees. You know, I get people going, oh, you know what, we want to start a Found franchise. Every month someone emails me, someone has money, and they're like, oh, hey, I want to buy into Found, would you let me open a shop in whatever? I'm like, thanks, but no thanks, because I don't want to just be another franchise or another brand. I think, because then I'm starting to lose the authenticity of what we're aiming to offer. I don't see Found starting any more than maybe 5 shops in Toronto, but, you know, and then maybe more, I don't know, we'll see.
I mean, who knows?
But right now we're at 3, and I just want them to be successful. I want the team to love coming to work.
Yeah.
You know, and our Guelph roastery, my goodness, the team are doing a fantastic job out there. And because now we're starting to roast for other cafes, right? So now this new packaging is like, okay, now we can proudly start to put our coffee in other cafes. And, you know, when I meet with these cafe owners, and they taste our coffee, they're like, oh, this is amazing, and this, that, and the other, but, you know, why should we pick Found over everyone else? And I'm like, well, have you got, how long you got? You know, like, no, I'm like, I say basically, my coffee, Found coffee, is not going to be in grocery.
Okay.
I tell them, I go, because I believe...
This is on camera now.
Yeah, I know. And I know I'm on camera. And I'll explain why. I go, because I believe in the local coffee shop. And the humble local coffee shop. And whenever I go to Longo's or Metro or wherever, I have a wander through the coffee aisle, and there's an entire aisle focused on coffee. And now they're starting to bring in other more craft-focused brands that are more mass production now, rather than, you know, micro production, which is what we do. So that's taking business, putting that coffee on the shelf in a supermarket is taking business away from the local coffee shop. I want people in our shops, I want people bringing their friends. I want people experiencing our coffee. If I put it on a shelf, it becomes more of a commodity that you just go buy it like it's a loaf of bread.
What's your go-to coffee order?
Depends what mood I'm in. I usually start the day with like I would say a drip coffee, our drip,
Okay.
because we don't do dark roast or any of that stuff, and then I finish with like a almond doctor or an almond flat white.
Okay, what's the most popular drink at your shop? Or like, what's like the signature drink at your shop?
Well, this is the thing about Canada, right? It's frozen for half the year, so like it's going to give you very high very high hot drink numbers compared to cold drink numbers.
Okay.
But I would say that our most popular drink would just be like a flat white or a latte.
What's the doctor?
Well, it's what you need after a big night out. No, it's the doctor is we've converted what's locally in Australia known as a Melbourne Magic, which is usually a double shot in an 8 ounce. We have converted it to a double ristretto in a 6 ounce, and that's where the doctor comes from. DR, double ristretto, in a 6 ounce cup with flat white textured milk. So that's what the doctor is. It's the strongest, sweetest, smoothest part of the coffee, and it's basically the first 40 grams, I would say.
There you go. Go try it out. That's
good.
A flat white.
Yeah, it's good. Look, it's the most authentic Australian menu, I would say.
What are your like dreams, next plans, hopes for the future?
World domination. No.
Through
Dreams for the future: to continue to be a great boyfriend to Nicole, to be a great son to my parents, and to be a great leader to the team.
Amazing. Right.
And start 1,000 cafes. No, I'm joking.
Okay. Oh my God.
No. It'd be good to have a couple more in the next few years, and to start to roast some more cafes. But that was the nice sign off, and then I ruined a nice sign off.
No, that was great. That was authentic, real.
Yes.
Just final things. Like, you've done such a great job of creating community and the growth on social media. Yes, I know a lot of people buy followers, but like I've seen people get to know your brand like through your social media, and also like anytime I'm at a market and I have your print out, like the print with your shop on it, people recognize Found. It's been really cool to see the cafe go from like literally from non-existent to like where it is now, and it's been really amazing. And you are such a like mentor to so many people in the industry, from your staff to like people like me. Like, you've taken time over the years to sit and talk to me, and it's been very helpful.
Not enough time.
I appreciate all of it. So I just want to say thank you again for coming on and spending like literally an hour and a half when I know you're so busy. And I hope this podcast inspires some people and brings people into your shop as well.
Well, thank you.
Right.
And I could say the same about you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.